Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the originals, the season finale of Colony, as well as the latest episode of Reverie. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I'll start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of the originals, you can skip to what I had to say about the season finale of Colony, and/or skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of Reverie. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of the originals. A great episode. Basically, time is running out for Hope because basically her first transformation is coming up and she potentially won't survive it because every other option that everyone's looking for, Davina, Freya, there's nothing, there's no time. Like, from what they can tell, there's nothing that can help. So Klaus's plan is to go to Mystic Falls, which is like, it's gotten a little crazy. Obviously, you see Elena Salvatore, MD. You see a bench dedicated to Matt. But yeah, he came here in particular to talk to Caroline because the only means he knows of dealing with this situation is her daughters, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's like, because he needs a Gemini. It's like, right. They literally are the last of Geminis. I mean, technically, Kai is still around, but he's not someone where he's at. Ain't no helping him. He has to stay where he is. But nevertheless, like, Caroline initially is kind of like, no. I don't want my daughters involved in all of this. It's like, well, where do you want that magic to go? And the point is for the magic to go inside of him. And she's like, wait, what? It's like, you guys threatened a long time ago to just like film me like in a block of cement, just throw me in the sea. She was like, yeah, I was a different person then. I was younger back then. She's like, no, you don't. It's like, but for him, it's like, I need to do whatever I can to help my daughter. And so she talks to her girls about it and everything. And then I love that moment of just kind of like, oh, this sincere moment. It's like, Mr. Michelson will talk to you now very calmly. He's like, first of all, I want to say thank you. Hard cut to Alaric just shooting him, and he's like, whatever this is, no, I'm like, come on, dude, you don't even know the full story. I was like, I get it, it's Klaus. But if to be fair, Klaus hasn't done like terrible things, because it kind of fits with what like Hope, she looks at Stefan's book, and then she looks at stuff Alaric's written. It's like, well, Elijah tries to spin it because, like, you know, she's like, because in her mind it's like, yeah, my dad's kind of the villain of the story. It's like, he has been for such a long time, but like I said, it's a complicated thing. I mean, to be fair, none of the Michelsons, I think that's also another reason, because they're like, yeah, it's not like any of us are innocent in this whole situation either, but Klaus is kind of considered the biggest bad, the biggest monster of all. I mean, but to be fair, there, as the Vampire Diaries has shown us, there have been much bigger monsters, whether it be like Silas or Cade. Like, obviously, there are varying levels of them, but still. But doing what he's done, he's been around such a long time, wreaking havoc. So obviously, especially in Stefan's book, you know, as well as, you know, Alaric, two people who are definitely not the biggest Klaus fans. But then even when Alaric does know the full story, he still doesn't want to do it. But it's like, dude, come on, you would do anything for your daughter. So why are you trying to take this, like, a father's chance to do the same for his own daughter? And for him, it's like, I understand, I'd want to help Hope in any shape and form I could, but the fact of the matter is, Klaus is Klaus. How do we know putting him in the bottom of an ocean, it's not going to be big enough to hold? I mean, he's like, yeah, that's not okay, because that was never the point. For him, it planned to end this with a white oak steak, and it's like, where the hell did you get that? Which kind of pisses Caroline off, because it's the second time someone close to her is planning to go to their death without telling her everything, that first person being Stefan. And it's like, ugh. It's also, I'm glad they kind of explained it to us, like, where the hell is a white, where did you get that from? Because the fact of the matter is that shouldn't be around. Like, you constantly made sure. But this one, he's like, yeah, he planned to get rid of it. He got it decades ago, but it was like in a point in time where he was not really all that keen about the immortality thing. I was like, when was that? That had to be like around, I was like, was that around Cammy's death that happened? I'm curious. Was that around the time? But he said decades ago. At least that's what I heard. I didn't hear, maybe he said a decade ago, which would kind of roughly be around that time. But it might have been decades ago he came upon that, which is kind of interesting. But it's kind of sad to think about that. That was always kind of his backup option. Like, always in the back of his head, that was always going to be his, like, out to this whole situation. because even Klaus, like, immortality can become heavy in many different regards, and I'm sure that Cammy situation, I don't know if that was one in particular, but for him, he knows that this is the only way, because if he like can't put this on anyone else, and he has to do whatever it takes to save his little girl. And I thought it was so beautifully said, where it's like, yeah, maybe there's some option out there where some book somewhere with some spell in it, just it's just somewhere out there in the world that could give me everything I want. I get to live and I get to stay and like watch my daughter grow, but I don't have that time. All I have is today. And it's like, dude, that's so heartbreaking. And the entire day, it's like you have like Elijah and Hope spending the day together, which even Elijah was like, you sure you want me to be the one to spend the day with? She hates my guts. But essentially, they spent, like, you know, she's not as volatile towards Elijah. I mean, she wasn't like that at Freya and Keelan's wedding. I mean, fair, that's the wedding, so obviously she was civil then. But nevertheless, it's just kind of like, I think her rage towards Elijah since her last, when they had their moment, like, a couple episodes back, I think most of her rage towards him went away. Mainly because she kind of internalized a lot of it. She blames herself the most for everything. But nevertheless, when it comes to Elijah telling stories, I thought it was kind of neat. It's like, oh yeah, your dad would always be mixing and trying to make new colors. I remember the first time he tried to tell me he discovered turquoise. I don't like, that was kind of a cute moment. But also tells of the story of what happened between him and Klaus and Michael. Michael struck him with one of the brushes, and Klaus was like, let's run away, Elijah, together. But he didn't want to leave Rebecca and Cole to feel, you know, Michael's wrath. I mean, they all suffered his wrath, but none like Klaus. Like, Klaus was his most hated child. I mean, because Klaus wasn't his. That always played a role in it. So, but he despised Klaus and everything that he is. Being different, being not his child, there's that. But Elijah felt like if he had left with Klaus, they would have had to suffer the ramifications for it. Like, all his hatred towards Klaus would have been sent to his other siblings. And he was like, and he decided to stay, and so did Klaus, but he promised from that day forth he would protect Klaus. And for him, he kind of still looks at it as a mistake. He should have ran away. I don't know, because like Elijah being who he is, being so dedicated to his family, I don't see him ever having done that. He would have never done that. Maybe the plan was run away with Klaus now and then eventually come back for his other siblings, but at the same time, it's like, I don't see him ever doing that. I mean, it is funny because notice that Finn never came up in the conversation, but I guess, you know, Finn's the second oldest, isn't he? Or is he like the third oldest? I forget the order in which because I know Rebecca's the baby of the family. If I remember correctly, yeah, Rebecca's like the baby of the family, so. Well, technically not, but of the living siblings, she was the baby of the family. Of the 5 that were left. But nevertheless, then there's that whole Landon situation, which is kind of interesting, which I'll kind of get into that a little bit later on. But as the fact is that she already knows that she's going to die. So she's kind of accepted it. That's why she didn't want to go with Landon. It's like, so how did you know? It's like, she kind of like, I pieced it all together. This pain, the marks and everything. Like, obviously this is going to kill me. She kind of already knew that when she first took the power in, that it probably potentially would. So when it all ultimately comes down to it, like, Elijah's going to take her driving. It's like, it's about time you should probably drive in a Bentley by now. And so taking her drive is like, that's a stop sign, so you need to slow down. She's like, I mean, I'm going to die and this won't kill you, so I don't know why but we don't need to mess up this masterful piece of art. And she had such a profound like conversation with Elijah. I thought was so interesting for her. It's like, how can I be both a curse and a blessing? Because for her, it's like, look at my whole situation. Like, I was never meant to be. It took extraordinary circumstances for me to come to be. Everything that happened with Klaus, everything that happened to Haley, all that kind of coming together. Which I think Elijah was kind of like, okay, I get it, because he didn't want to hear the details about, like, you know, Haley being a one-night stand with his brother. It's a whole thing I'm sure that he's trying to avoid. But it's like, he doesn't want, like, he didn't want to hear that. But for her, it's like literally people have wanted me dead before I was even born. Let's not forget who those said people are. Like, Esther, their mom wanted her dead. Then there's the whole, like, their aunt wanting her because that's what she was owed. And now all these other people wanted her dead because she's the miracle child and everything. Like, in her mind, it's like, I'm the cursed child as well, you know? getting a little revenge on that Connor dude for the way he was kind of treating Landing, just kind of being in a d-bag. But then you hear her reasoning behind like why she blames herself, because it's like, yeah, she tried to blame Elijah, but it's like, it was me, hiding Haley, you know, her mom away. I'm the reason why Roman and his mom feared. It wasn't you guys necessarily. It was more so me that they feared. And it's like all that led to Haley's death. She's like, when I try to bring my family back together, I broke it even more, because that's the whole reason why she hid Haley away, was to bring her dad back home. And it's like, I try to fix our family and I just made it worse. And it's just, she takes that all on herself. And it's something her and Elijah end up talking about, because he's like, I should have never put the burden on you that I did. Like our family situation wasn't your burden to bear. I've put that on you to be the hope of the Michelson family ever since you were born, and I should have never done that. But she talks about the fact is, but what about you? You couldn't have been much older than me when you decided you were going to protect Klaus. The fact of the matter is, you were the one who came up always and forever. Like, he's always put the family burden on himself. And she's like, we were both born with responsibilities that never should have been ours, but they are. And so we kind of have to deal with that. So, but it also was this nice moment of, well, nice but scary moment of when she almost died, which when she woke up, it almost breaks your heart, because you see Klaus is shaking. He's like, oh my God, he thought he lost his little girl. I was like, dude, you could feel it. You could see his hand shake. I was like, that was so well done. I was like, holy shit. Like, you never see Klaus shaking like that. It's like, it scared the living hell out of him, that moment. Like, oh my God, my baby girl might be dead. Like, it scared him. But in that time, she went to the afterlife and saw Haley. But Haley shows her like, no, I'm not here alone. The fact of the matter is, I'm surrounded by Jackson, his mom, so many people. I'm not here alone. Because she tells Hope, it's like, I forgive you. So you don't have to worry about forgiving yourself. I forgive you. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like, you think you killed me. It's like, no, you gave me peace. Because for her, it's like, she's able to live in peace now, because she knows that Hope is okay, that the entire family is there, and is, you know, that the Michelson family will always look after her and take care of her. She's surrounded by so many people that love her. So she's like, I know you'll be okay. That's what gives me peace. You know, you being as strong as you are and having the loving family that you have that will always look after you. And she's like, it'll be a long time before we see each other, so you better have some epic stories and some great love story, you know, too, to tell me when it's all said and done. I also gave her a message to give to Elijah, and like, in her mind, she thinks it was just kind of maybe it was just a dream or whatever. But when she tells him she's still waiting for that dance he owes her, Elijah kind of pauses, and he doesn't say anything to her, but he knows that was real, because we know what that means. Which, all of that in my mind made me think, oh, so Elijah's going to do it, because I was like, yeah, they're going to set it up that way, because that way he can make it so that he gets to Haley potentially. I don't know. So he confronts Klaus because Caroline told him, and he's like, what? He's like, no, you're not going to do this. He's like, let me be the one to take this, brother, because it's on me. You know, it's always looking after his little brother. But Klaus is like, no, I've been a burden to you my entire life. I will not kill you. And so he ends up snapping Elijah's neck, and he's like, take care of her, brother. And it's just because I'm sure in Klaus's mind, you know, he's always been the villain. It's like, I deserve this, you know? You, brother, don't. You've always tried your best. You've always done your best. It's like, if anyone deserves to be punished after everything, you know, let me do this. Let me do one good, you know, a great thing in my life. Of all the bad stuff I've done, let me do this one good thing, I'm sure. I'm sure also for Elijah, it'd be in his mind, maybe it's redemption to get back to, I mean, also hearing about Haley, maybe he thinks that'd be his way to do this, while also protecting his niece and brother, because it's like, no, she needs you, Nicholas. She's already lost Haley. She can't lose you too. Like, that'd be too much, you know? Especially, too, because this kind of hints at Caroline and Klaus, which I thought this season was going to kind of be about. Like, I thought something would have happened between, because like this was like a while before like the season even aired. I had saw that like a promotional picture of like Caroline and Klaus together. I was like, oh, so is there going to be something this season? I thought like he'd find love. Like, they've met up a few times this season, but not a lot. They almost kiss. It kind of sucks because for Caroline, her love life does not kind of work out. It's like, Stephen's situation didn't work out. The Alaric situation didn't work out, and then neither did the Klaus situation. Because for her, she feels so conflicted because she's like, I want you to, how can I tell you not to do this? This is you being the best good guy you can be, and that's all I've ever wanted for you. And for her, she's like, she's come to realize, like, because apparently she tried to run away, like, when it came to the little girl. I assume this is around season 7. During the time skip, I'm assuming that she tried to find him in New Orleans because she was running away with her little girls. I assume it was during then, because then she's kind of like, yeah, but I couldn't find you. And Klaus didn't say anything, but I'm assuming that's when he was locked up for those 5 years. I can only assume that was then. I could be 100% wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. The timeline-wise, that kind of fits. Because season 3's finale of the originals took place before the 3-year time skip in the Vampire Diaries. So probably when she tried to find him back then, she couldn't. So, and I can only assume that's why. Because specifically, she said when the girls were little. So it's not like between season 4 and season 5. It's like, no, it was definitely like during that time, I would assume, during season 3 to season 4, that time period. Because for her, she's like, I knew I could come to you because I've always known that you were never the villain of the story. Once again, that's what I want with, I made a video a while back calling like, oh, hero or villain about Klaus Michelson. And it's like, yes, he's complicated. He's done a lot of bad things. But when it comes down to it, Klaus has always tried to do the right thing. Yes, it's kind of been a little misguided and a little like ulterior motive sometimes, but he's always tried to do the right thing. He's a good guy at heart. Like it makes you wonder once again, it's like if he didn't have the upbringing he did, there's no telling what kind of person Klaus would have actually been, But when it comes down to it, Hope's curse activates as she transforms, and he's like, the point is you have to let go. Like the longer you fight it, the more you try and fight it to hold it back to pain, it could last for hours. So Hope is like, what hours? And then, he's like, all you have to do is just let it kind of take you whole. And just let go, And then he's like, I'm so proud of you. He's like, when you turn, just run free. And she does, having no idea because he kept it from her the entire time when he was planning to do it. And Caroline had to deal with the whole, hey, we have Hope kind of in her first transformation. We do kind of hear some like snarling and people screaming. So I guess that's her kind of going a little amok. I'm sure, Caroline's dealing with that, obviously, but she couldn't be there because she just couldn't bring herself to watch him die. So, which, kind of has to hit Alaric a little hard, too, because it's like, Klaus still? Because even he feels like he still has some pull over. Because let's not forget, like, even before now, like, there was a thing, like, Caroline found herself, she liked Klaus because she was one of the first people that's ever saw beyond, like, who Klaus is on the surface. Like, Cammy saw that. Elijah's always seen it. Caroline herself has seen it. Even Haley's seen it. A lot of the family has too. Like some people probably like Cole's probably like not as willing to see it, but even Rebecca, like people have seen the kindness that Klaus is capable of. And Elijah shows up in time. I thought he was going to show up in time just to take it upon himself, but then we see him there in front of Klaus, and he's like, "Don't do this, brother," and it cuts to black with him stabbing himself. Well, the title card. So I strongly believe, especially with things being set up like this, and I kind of figured this much ahead of time just because season 4 was just as long, is that next week's episode is in fact the series finale. It all comes down to this. And I'm so curious to see how it all plays out. I still get the feeling like Elijah might still pull this off to take it upon himself. So it's what I'm talking about, because I feel like he's going to try and suck the power into himself, because like I said, like he wants to make it sure that Klaus is still around. So I don't know whether he's going to like knock Klaus out because he wants the entire family there together before this happens, because Hope should be allowed to say goodbye to her dad because he never told her the truth. So she never knew that each time she was seeing him potentially might be the last. So this might be like a final Michelson family get together to get rid of this, like, once and for all. And I kind of have a feeling, I talked about that before. I felt like this was going to end with Klaus dying, but it might end with Elijah dying. Once again, it's like, like I said, it'd be very interesting because the Vampire Diaries kind of did a twist like that too, where it's kind of like, oh, you thought it was going to end with Damon dying. It's like, nope, it ended with Stefan sacrificing himself. And it's like, we don't know, like, whether, like, you know, to kind of make the parallels, because obviously the storylines make the parallels, because you can make, like, oh, these two brothers whose world and lives became so much complicated because they became vampires reflects heavily with Elijah and Klaus's relationships, heavily, you know? So it's kind of like this repeating cycle to a certain degree. And I guess you could make it almost seem like this is the end, like Vampire Diaries was at the end of their cycle, and now this is potentially the end of the original cycle, the Michaels and family cycle, in this particular case with Elijah and Klaus. So I'm very interested to see how this all ends. I will note, maybe this has already come up for some people, but there is a CW trailer called Legacies. Avoid it if you've already seen it to a certain degree, because at this point in time, I think it's still okay. It's okay, but at the same time, but it came out before this episode airs, so it's kind of a little spoilers. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of spoilers, but at the same time, it didn't give away the ending of the originals, so you can if you want to. I'd highly recommend just wait, just in case. But I won't go into it too much. I'll wait until the series finale next week, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more. So, but beyond that, just kind of forewarning you, if you haven't seen it already, don't wait till the series finale. Like, you'll probably watch it and be like, oh, why did you even say anything? It's not that big of a deal. I know, but it's just, you know, just for your sake of mind, so you have to worry about that type of thing. It's just all I'm saying. So if you've already seen it, you've already seen it. So you probably think like, oh, you're being a little weird about, like, it's not like anything bad spoiler. It's just like I said, it happened all before this episode airs. So I'm like, but now with what's going down this episode, it's like, okay, it still doesn't really spoil too much. It kind of spoiled this episode to a certain extent, because there are actually scenes in that trailer that are in this episode, in fact. So that's kind of interesting. So, like I said, I'm very fascinated to see how this all comes to an end, like how it all comes to an end. And now moving on to the season finale of Colony, a great season finale. A lot of stuff went down this episode that we're going to have to break down. So first of all, let's talk about the fact is, I didn't expect it, but a lot of we ended up finding out a lot of IGA people, like higher ups, as well as just were either killed or captured. We know that one of the people that died was Helena. I did not see that come. I was like, oh wow, you're so popping in and out of the story. And it's like, nope, you're dead now. Also, we still don't know how those things operate, the enemy of the raps, because it's like, it seems like those things don't have to get close to you to kill you. It's just kind of like, I don't know what it is. Like, she was far enough away from it and it just looked at her and it killed her. Like something comes over, like it's almost like this elusive thing pops up over, like filter almost pops up on your face and you just drop dead. What that is exactly, I don't know, because it just looks like they just come near you, people just start dropping dead. It's like you don't even have to fire a weapon. It must be some advanced technology. It must do something to shut down your brain or something like that. I mean, I'd assume it's killing you. I doubt it's just who knows? Maybe that isn't killing you. Maybe that is just kind of like, knocking you unconscious. Maybe it's kind of like a paralytic that just kind of frees you. I don't know whether that... before it seemed like it was an outright kill, but maybe it puts your body in a certain state and makes it almost like dead but paralyzed. I don't know. It looks like pretty much death, but like I said, we'll have to find out, because he did say some were captured, so that might have been capturing rather than killing. Because she's hot. It's so interesting, especially after like Helena made that whole speech about like, no, when we win this war, the raps will take care of us. And it's like hard cut to this. It's just kind of like, man, that kind of sucks for you. Even Snyder's kind of like laying on the couch, kind of like, I don't know what the fuck to do. Because when he hears about this, it's like, there's no new orders coming in. He's like, even he's starting to be like, maybe we chose the wrong side. And Garland's like, you idiot, it's too late to be doing that. So we got to, and then Snyder kind of snaps back into his normal self about this thing. Will got captured, but it's like, yo, the raps, which he can actually talk to because it's supposed to be an emergency line only. Seattle hasn't kept up with its, outlier quota because of kinds, and so it's like, we need 150. If you don't turn yourselves over, Seattle will not be protected by the raps. This is also where Will finds out about the factory. And this episode is filled of like, oh wow, you didn't know that. It's like, right, you kind of forget, like, not everyone knows that. Like, we as the audience know that because we got to see that, like, when Helena and then we're talking about it, like, we saw that. So we kind of found out a little bit what the higher ups know, but that is like, oh wow, that's when Will found out. Don't forget his friend from season 1 was in the factory too. It hits Katie later on too when she finds out, because let's not forget her sister's there. I'd assume her nephew is there too. I'm blanking on it. I'm pretty sure like her or did she do something different with her, Hudson, Maddie? Did she do something different? Like, he was with her at the end when LA was renditioned wasn't he? I can't remember. So they're potentially both going, which is like, yeah, that's why we haven't seen her pop up in all this season. But it's like, well, last time we saw her, she was being renditioned and stuff like that. So she was at the factory too. But nevertheless, it's like, man, that sucks. And for Katie to hear that now of all times is crazy. She also found out from Bram about the whole, it's like, okay, now you officially know. Because I wasn't sure, like, what she knew and when she knew. Because I was like, I knew that Will was constantly hiding that from her. And Bram was like, yeah, like, because she's like, me and your dad never wanted you to get mixed up in this. He's like, yeah, then why did dad ask me to help him go kill Schneider? And that kind of hit her hard. It's like, man, she had, like, once again, it's sad because for Katie, it's like she was doing her best to keep her family together. And she had no idea what was going on. For when Bram's got this whole secret life, Will was kind of off on his own, falling apart. She was dealing with the whole Charlie thing on her own. Much like Will was kind of dealing with it in his own way too, rather than dealing with it as a family. They kind of divided and kind of did with it, kind of try to take care of it on their own, handle it on their own. Because, like, Bram is like, nah, like, I'm not going to tell you where Gracie is. It's like, come on, dude. Like, I get it. You're pissed and everything. But at the same time, it's like, you guys are getting involved in this whole situation. And the fact of the matter is, Gracie would be better off because if something happens, you guys should get taken away. At least with this way, she'd at least have me. And it's like, when it's all said and done, we can talk about this later. But it's not, at the same time, you're like, you get it. And, like, you can't help but respect what Bram's doing. But at the same time, you're like, oh, come on, dude. Don't do that. Don't be an asshole. So Katie ends up showing up. We ended up actually learning too that Amy had a boyfriend in Seattle that in some shape or form she was kind of hoping like maybe he'd be here, but now she found out he was, she knew Seattle was renditioned. This is like way back when they first got here. So she was kind of hoping maybe on some level he was still here. He wasn't. And now that the factory blew up, she's worried about, he might be gone. And she said such an interesting thing where she's kind of like, you're such a strong woman, Katie. And Katie's like, yeah, that's because I had something to believe in to kind of get me this far. But now she doesn't know. Because it seems like everything she believes in just isn't fitting together. Like the whole thing with Seattle, she tried to like think she was doing good work, but it turns out in actuality it wasn't what she thought it was. Then like everything she did in LA, it's like, well, LA got renditioned and stuff like that. So it's like doing the right thing and what she believed in, it's hard to say like it doesn't fit with everything else, because it's like doing what she believed in, kind of kept her separate from her family, even though she was trying to protect her family. And that turns into a whole conversation too, especially when she confronts Will. I love that Will tried to turn that on her. It's like, don't turn this on me. The fact of the matter is you put us in this situation. Because she's like, I never got our kids involved. He's like, Bram's 19, which is kind of what I was debating. I was thinking like Bram's still got to be like 18 at most, but it's like, no, 19. It kind of makes sense. Because nevertheless, it's that whole situation of like, kind of like, almost like he's an adult. He can make his own decisions. That was his choice, but it's like, you should have never gotten involved. And the fact of the matter is he's trying to twist it like, oh, that you and Broussard did in LA, getting a redemption and everything. It's kind of like, that's on you guys. And just like trying to make Katie feel bad about it. But even she's like, the reason why you lied to me is because you fucked up. It was wrong to do what you did. And it's just, and he's trying to take the blame and aim it at her because he's, trying to deflect it from himself. Because it's like, no, it's not all on me. And it's like, no, they both had fault in it. It's like, we were so caught up in our own thing. We weren't there for our kids. We were kind of being bad parents. And she's like, talk to me, Will. Don't lying to me and say you're okay when you're obviously not. And he's like, I don't know how to dig myself out of this. It's like he's so far down, he's so deep down, he doesn't know what to do. They know about Meadow because the photo that Katie found. So she's going to try and track Meadow down to find out where Gracie is, and then Will's going to try, and he's like, I'll meet up with you later. Which makes me wonder, where does he stand in that whole situation when it finally comes down to it? Because he's like, he signs up for what, like being some of the 150 outliers that are necessary to protect Seattle. Because by doing this, they make sure that Seattle stays safe. And the argument could be made is like, is Will doing this because he is trying to protect his family, or is it for the sake? No, because I think it is a situation. I mean, he could have just let someone else take that role. Because even Broussard was looking at him like, you know what you're doing, right? And Will, it's like, well, it's hard to say whether Will is doing this because it's like, no, this is the right thing to do. Because they were talking about the fact is we need to look after our family first before we worry about the bigger picture and everything like that. Because we've let that kind of control us and take over. We should be focused on our family, not this whole situation, which is kind of like, it's kind of hard, because it's like, it's such a big situation. You kind of have to worry about it. Literally everyone has to worry about it because war is here and the earth is going to be the center of this war. So it brings up that whole situation. So, but at the same time, it's like, we need to get our family in order before we worry about that. But it's like, is Will kind of running away from it? Is he still dealing with the whole Charlie thing that he's doing this? I like to think that maybe he's doing this because it's like, no, 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 no. I am doing this because by being one of the outliers, he's ensuring that his family stayed safe. And it's something he was like, I trust Broussard. And the fact of the matter is, if we all wanted to do something bigger than us, this is it. And I think in the grand scheme of things, Will probably, it may be in his mind, he's thinking by doing this, maybe I can make it up for what I did for my family, not really being there for him. I mean, he kind of still said it himself. It's like, I told you the other day, I'm not, that you should kind of just forget about me. She's like, do not quit on me, Will. So I don't know if this is just him quitting. Is this him trying to do the best thing that he can to make sure that they stay safe? Because this ultimately does lead to Seattle getting shielded at the end of the episode. So it's like, it's not like there was nothing to it. So it also seems like there's something else that Kynes told them. I mean, I assume it means that he did die because we never saw him again for the rest of the episode. So I can only assume it's like, no, he died. It almost seemed like there's also something else that he told Broussard and Amy that no one else knows. But for now, Broussard's like going to keep it hush hush until all the forces get together. Then he'll probably decide whether or not to tell them. But we don't know what it is exactly, he said, because he did say like, oh, you know, you guys should know what you're fighting for. Like once everyone's gathered, then he'll tell them probably like the truth about it. But beyond that, we don't know. It is kind of interesting because Amy was like, I'm sorry about your friend. It's like he decided what he did, what he had to do. And it's like, she's like, I'm still sorry, you know, because like I said, because he wasn't, once again, it's like that situation of like, well, is Will doing this, like, once again, to run away from the situation, to kind of fill that hole in his heart, just kind of rushing off to die? Or is this legitimately him being like, no, I'm going to look after my family? Because we've seen what everyone, even trained soldiers going up against him couldn't do anything. It's like, versus their technology, what do you do? I mean, maybe things will be different this time because now they'll have like the Raps on their side 100% because they're, I mean, but to be fair, they're going to be fighting their battles above and they're going to be fighting their battles below on the ground. So we've seen what one of them can do, like an army of them. Like, what do you do to counteract that? Not unless they get equipped with some stuff. But as we've seen the outlier situation before, like as we've seen it kind of played out in this season, I was like, it does not bode well for everyone. So who knows, like whether things are going to go well for Will as well as the other outliers that signed up. You know, some twist I wasn't expecting is the shot that Roy, the tech dude that was working with Kynes, like the moment, like he's like, oh yeah, you're that dude, aren't you? And then bam, I was like, because I was like, oh man, it's gonna be crazy if he works with them, but it's like, no, because even Snyder's like, yeah, you guys are kind of loyal to Kynes. I don't know which one of you to trust, which are you secretly with. And it's like, oh yeah, you're the one that deleted all the stuff that makes it harder for us to defend ourselves. Okay, Pam killed him. I was like, oh, poor bastard. Poor lady next to him too, covered in blood, and just like Snyder just kind of handing her a handkerchief to kind of like wipe herself off. It's like, holy crap. He's like, the fact is you didn't leave is kind of proof that, hey, we can work together on the situation to make sure that Seattle kind of like stands, because it's like we got to make sure that everything we'll kind of build back, you know, rules kind of. So it's kind of interesting because now Seattle's kind of become new LA because, you know, Snyder's kind of running at night like that. So it's going to be more probably going for most likely a more traditional colony, which to be fair, it's not going to be traditional because this is literally in the middle of the war. Like I said, it's always interesting because you never get 100% the worldwide impact. You get little bits here and there, but it's also like wherever the Bowmans typically are, that's kind of where like the centerfold of all of this kind of has a tendency to go. So things kind of lucked out for Bram because I was like, oh man, things are going to get ugly when his people respond, him and his people and the patrol responded to what basically Broussard and his people were doing when they were gathering up guns and stuff like, well, trying to get back into that place to kind of find out what's going down, whether everything that Snyder said was true. Because once again, even under these circumstances, you can't take Snyder at his word because the fact of the matter is he still put a tracker on Will, which he found. So, but nevertheless, you know, but like things got ugly. I thought it was kind of interesting because Meadows' dad kind of backed away. He's like, I'll do this. And you had Bram kind of looking at it. I was like, does he know what's coming or something? Is he actually secretly working with it? It's like, no, I guess he just got lucky in his decision. Maybe he knew more than he let on. I don't know. But luckily, Bram survived. Because I was about to say, that's going to get ugly when it starts getting shooting. Because I was like, I expected Will and Bram to kind of cross paths, but they never did because all that kind of took place outside. They never got inside because there were people on the outside, you know, blocking everything, like giving covering fire and stuff like that. I'm like, man, that would have gotten weird and super awkward and crazy. I was like, I legitimately halfway expected them to run across each other, but they never did. So because Bram thinks it's like, oh, our parents are getting in the middle of this. It's like, it's hard to say, like, it's like he tries to make Gracie feel better because it's like, hey, no matter what, do know that they love you. I don't know whether we'll see them again soon or not, but know that they do love you. Because even Bram knows their parents love. Yeah, it's a complicated thing. It's like they weren't supposed to be doing this again, but then they found out, well, Seattle wasn't safe. To be fair, what they're doing kind of inadvertently made it so that Seattle is safe. At least what Will did. You had Katie going on the outside, running into her. Was that lady her boss or just her coworker? I think that might have been her boss. But she ended up helping her out find Katie. Like, she ended up helping Katie out to find Meadow. I was like, oh, that's sweet. She's not kind of a terrible person. I mean, it's kind of like anyone in this situation. Everyone's just trying to do what they can to survive. She's wanting to stay behind and try and help people. And Katie's like, I really kind of did you wrong, didn't I? Which she's like, you do what you got to do, you know? Sadly, that ends with Katie being stuck on the outside because the gates end up getting closed, which, like I said, we see fire raining down from above, but the shield blocks good. But there's some that hits on the outside where Katie is. It's a good distance away, but we see kind of like the shockwave and like some debris and fire kind of falling, like it's some fire and brimstone type of shit. And it's like, man, things are getting crazy. Then you have Broussard and his group bunkering down because they're going to bunker down till this is all said and done. And when the time comes, they'll come back to the surface and do whatever it is that Kynes is telling them, like, oh, we'll fight for. Like, we know that Kynes is like, yo, we're going to take out the IGA and the Authority when this is all said and done. We're going to take back the Earth. That's kind of what this is all about. But it's like, if they win this war, like, I don't see how the Raps are going to win this war. Like I said, it seems like this enemy, they're completely and utterly outmatched. Once again, we still don't get a clear picture. It's still a very blurry picture on what this new enemy looks like. Like I said, we don't know. Like I said, it didn't even move when it killed Helena, and it just kind of was staring at her. So it must be something in their face that kills you. Plus, they got that like camouflage tech, or I mean, I would say it's more camouflage and invisibility because you can't see a shimmer. Like, it's some Predator level stuff. So I don't know whether you call. I think that's considered camouflage. I don't think that's considered invisibility because there was a shimmer. If it was invisibility, it'd be completely invisible. But there's a shimmer, so I think that says a lot. So it's kind of sad because, like, no matter what, like, the Bowman family is broken up. At least at the end of season 2, they were together. Season 1. And they were kind of split up to a certain degree because Bram got arrested. At least Gracie and Kate. I was like, no, it's very much like season 1 because now they were separated. So it's like they were separated in season 1's finale. Season 2 finale, they were completely together. In season 3's finale, they're kind of split up, and now there's no Charlie. So it's crazy to see that things have kind of gotten to where they are. Like I said, I don't see how the Raps are going to win this, but maybe they can pull it off. I mean, we haven't seen the full scale of what they're capable of. We know there's only a certain number of the Raps themselves left, but it's like, how many of them are there compared to this enemy? Like, they're coming at full force. Like, they haven't completely and utterly hit the ground yet. They have some forces on the ground, but I'm sure now they've definitely hit now, but in this episode, they've hit the ground hard. But before, we probably saw some sprinkled here and there, but now full forces plus what's going on in the sky. I think it's kind of genius too, because you will always get the human perspective on things, because you will never get to see the grand scope of this entire battle. Except for that little bit we saw, we will never see the grand scope of this battle, because it's like, it's always going to be from the human perspective of, like, we're here on Earth not seeing what's going on down up there. So I think that's kind of a pretty neat way to handle it. I mean, for one, yes, it's a super less expensive way to handle that too, but still at the same time, it's like, I think it fits because it's like, yeah, you're seeing the human perspective, like, what's going on, there's some crazy shit, but it's like, obviously as humans, we never would know what's going down there anyway. How would anyone, so showcasing it to us is like, that'd be something only they can, like, really kind of see, like, oh man, this is how it's going, until it starts entering completely Earth's atmosphere, like every aspect of the battle. We even saw like crap ton of drones leaving. I wonder what I guess the walkers can help. I mean, that's something I ain't really talked about too much. It's like, we did see more of their technology expand because we saw walkers this season. Granted, we haven't seen a lot of them. I think we've seen like, 2 walkers this entire season? I mean, once again, probably like cheaper not to like freaking like having to visually, show those things, but still, who knows what else, what other shape and forms the drones can take on in this whole thing. So, at the time we recorded this, I don't know if this is getting renewed for a 4th season or not. I'm really hoping so, because I'd love to see where this takes us in the next season with all of this, like the battle heating up, Earth being kind of caught in the middle and what it means for the Bowman family going forward. Like this, because it seems like legitimately Seattle is going to be like the centerfold of everything next season, because obviously this is where the Outliers are going to mount their resistance. Obviously they're going to buy their time, be well stocked. Plus Broussard was also like, yeah, there's some crazy other shit in here too. It's also interesting too that Amy's still with them, so I'm kind of like expecting something to happen there, because she's kind of like his right hand in this situation. It's kind of interesting because she's the one that convinced Broussard to kind of step forward, because Broussard never would have, because he's like, I'm more like, oh yeah, I'm more of the gun, you point me in the right direction and I'll go. But you know, it's like now you kind of have to speak up, because it's like you can't just wait around for someone to dish out orders, because they didn't know where their kindness was going to get back up. And he's not a leader in this situation. Broussard is, because he's one of the Outliers, so it's up to him. He was the one dishing out the orders and everything. So also curious to see what Seattle is going to be like, you know, with Snyder and everything. Because I remember, I love him saying the line of like, I hope I never see you and your family again. Most likely in a season 4, you probably would, whether you want to or not. Might not be with the whole Will situation, him being out in the front lines and stuff like that. Like I said, Katie be on the outskirts, like beyond, like what's that's going to turn into. Like that's potentially being like, oh man, she could die. But I mean, she knows how to take care of herself, but it's like things are going to get pretty bad outside the wall of Seattle. So beyond that, I don't know what's going to happen, because there's a lot of people on the outside. It didn't even cross my mind to think that when the guy was like, but we still got people out there. I didn't think like, all right, Katie's still out there, until they cut to it. It's like, right. Okay. So also quick update. I just had to look it up. I figured I'd handle things like this for now and kind of get my thoughts out at the end, before I kind of look it up. But sadly, came to find out Colony has been canceled, at least by USA. Once again, in the nature of networks and stuff like that, you can hope that eventually something or someone else picks it up. I hope, but for right now, it seems like this is technically the series finale, so there will sadly be no season 4. I hope that changes, but we'll have to wait and see whether, you know, USA changes their mind or something else comes about it. So. And now moving on to this week's episode of Reverie, a great episode. So in this episode, it seems that there's a lady in this assisted living facility named Pilar who is going inside of the Reverie. And it's kind of interesting, because you kind of like, you understand why the guy who's running the place is kind of like know about it. At the same time, it's like, well, she's an adult, she can make her own decisions. But at the same time, it's like, it would be putting her health in risk. And it's like, if she doesn't get out of there within a certain amount of time, he's like, yeah, we're just going to put her in a different facility. But it's like, why would you do that? It's not like she's hurting anyone doing this, but it's like she's hurting herself. And it's like, we're trying to keep people grounded in the real world. And if they just use that as an escape, they're going to, you know, they're going to try and escape from the real world, and in their conditions, they should be able to do that. Like, it's going to cause more problems than good, but at the same time, it's hard to debate, because you're kind of being a jerk about it, because it's like later on Mara's like, just let her out, then let her back in so she can start the Reverie. That's all you got to do. Like, she wants to live it, but it's like he doesn't let her, and it's just kind of like, why you have to be such a hard ass about this? Why can't you just move on it? But at the same time, it's like you get where he's coming from, but it's just like, come on, dude, be a little flexible here. But I guess it makes sense too, because it's like, if he does this, who's to say she won't try and make an excuse later on? No, let me do it. No, I need to do it again. Need to do it again. Just one more time. And eventually other people find out about it. They start using Reverie like that. And you just have these whole, I think probably there's also probably a situation of like, probably just covering his ass, because if anything happens to them because of this whole situation, it becomes a lawsuit thing. That's why I'm pretty sure he's like, yeah, send her somewhere else. Most likely because it's like, yeah, if something happens to her, at least someone else will be liable. I won't be liable. I tried to do this and tried to do that, but it didn't happen, you know, so that's my thought about it. Maybe that's just me being a little cynical about it, but nevertheless, it's kind of interesting, because Mara is like, oh yeah, she thinks this is all about like, oh, Pilar's in this for the fact of like, oh, she's trying to, oh, this man that she loved, like, oh, she just wants that romantic thing. And I love that Mara tried to turn it to romantic thing, because her and Chris are having their thing, and she kind of projected like, oh, her all lovey-dovey feelings and stuff on Pilar's situation, because it turns out not at all what this was all about, because she cared and loved for Joaquin, but him dying was kind of a good thing, a blessing, a terrible thing, but there was a blessing. There's a silver lining to it, because basically there were these kids that were were going to be captured by the military at that time, because this is during like a coup in Chile, and she was able to get the kids out in time, but because the soldiers were distracted by Hakeem, because of him and his group, like the resistance kind of fighting back and stuff. So that gave her the time to get them out and kind of get them away from the situation, kind of get them sent, to other people to kind of get them where they need to be, whether it be like other places and eventually to families and stuff, so, but Mara, because the Reverie works in a way that once you change one little thing, once you start interfering, the Reverie will play out to adapt to that situation, because it is kind of like an ever-moving thing. So it's like you change one thing, the Reverie will continue on. It's not going to go like, oh, it's based on like the original program. And it's like, no, how things would play out, it plays out like that, because the Reverie is that sophisticated, it adapts. Those kids, because Mara brought Yakim, he wasn't there to distract the soldiers, so the kids were just taken. And because kids are easier to kind of like, interrogate, because like, oh, you don't have to worry about them lying, because they're going to be a lot more truthful to find out about what the rebels and stuff like that. So Mara kind of screwed things up big time. Like I said, it's just because she's all lovey-dovey and everything's good for her, she kind of pushed that onto Pilar. But to make up for it, she tries to help her, because for Pilar, this is all about like, this is for her. She wanted to do one good, like she wanted to relive this moment, because it was such a good moment for her. She's like, I helped those girls, I saved those girls, I did good, because she wanted to relive this moment in her life where she felt like she did something, had some kind of meaning, because the rest of her life she probably just lived it any other way. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, in my situation, I've got cancer, I'm going to die eventually, but it's kind of like, she's like, we all die anyway, but I want to know, at the very least, relive this moment where my life mattered, to remember I did something good. I did something that maybe had some greater effect, that there was some meaning to me being here, and Mara ended up helping her accomplish that again, like fixing things in the Reverie. Obviously, they went about it a different way. But for her, it's like, this was the last time she saw those kids. Why this memory is that much important to her too. Why saving them is so important, because like this memory would allow her to see them for one last time. But Mara reminds her, like, these are just echoes. The fact of the matter is, you still kind of have a life out there, whether you kind of realize it or not. Like those kids wouldn't want you to have this life where you just kind of like stay in here until you die. So she comes out, and it was nice, because you see her day kind of brighten on when she sees Mara, because it's like, hey, like it's always kind of nice when they get to meet for real for the first time. It's like, oh my god, like she's talking about how brave Mara is. Mara's like, what about you? You crashed through the barricades, all those soldiers were shooting, you still kept on driving. You're the badass here. And then you kind of figured as much, but it's still very nice that one of the people, obviously, like Charlie was able to track down everybody, all the girls she helped, but one in particular came, and she has a granddaughter named Pilar. It's kind of like, yeah, like my family wanted to say thank you. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, Pilar's like, why do they thank me? It's like, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this beautiful family that I have. And we don't see the other three girls she saved, but I'm sure the same thing is. So it kind of shows her, yeah, there was meaning, because you helped these girls. They went off, had their own families, and they're living they're these big, happy families. And it's because of you. So yeah, there was meaning, because you gave birth to you saved these girls, and who went off to have these amazing lives and live lives that they wouldn't have been able to live if it wasn't for you. Who knows what their situation could have been if you hadn't stepped in. So it was kind of nice that everything kind of played out in that way. I thought that was such a beautiful story. Because also in this episode, we have Paul kind of being worried about Mara, because he's kind of like, yeah, he's just worried that same situation about her bruise will come back again, because it's like, for him, it's like, yeah, but I don't know what caused it. Which, she's like, hey, because she's high on her and Chris. The fact of the matter is, like, it's like, nope, you and Alexis, I trust you guys to figure it out. He's like, oh, you're in a good mood. Why for taste? She's like, just kind of just on cloud nine. He's like, okay. And he goes to talk to Alexis. And it's kind of what I thought before. Basically, it's like, because Reverie makes things so real, his thought process is that it basically tricks your brain into thinking it's real, so your body's going to have a reaction. Just kind of like people who think they're pregnant start showing symptoms like they're pregnant because they believe so much. So it's kind of the same principle in this regard. And he tries to tell it to Alexis, but Alexis kind of shrugging it off. And he's like, well, there's one person who warned about this, and that was Oliver, which Alexis doesn't like that conversation happening. But Paul's like, we should go talk to him, because he's he kind of potentially figured this out. But Alexis tried to like deflect it by being like, no, that was just stuff, like, what's throwing it out there. There's like, there's no like true basis on it, because this hasn't really happened before. So I mean, it all came about like when she actually goes, because she actually goes without telling Charlie, because she figures like if she did, like Charlie would never let that happen. So it does seem like it is like a Berlin situation. After talking with Oliver, it seems everything's good. And immediately my brain was like, he had to have set this up, right? Like this whole Mara thing, he had to have set it up so that he fiddled with the program, because he's already got access to it. So I'm like, okay, he fiddled with the program or something, and Mara got hurt. The way he responded later kind of makes me think like, no, he actually had nothing to do with it. It does seem like what he suggested kind of turned out to be the thing. It's because of the whole it being two reveries overlapping, the Berlin situation, or the two reveries overlapping. Her mind wasn't completely in there, and so her body kind of had like a reaction. Like he made a comparison of like if you're vomiting, how your body will kind of respond to you constantly vomiting. Like that was just kind of interesting to me. I was like, okay, so maybe you're not completely a dick. I was like, I still don't trust you, but it's like him and Alexis are kind of having small talk, talking about the past a little bit and kind of laughing. I'm like, oh wow, things are actually going to end good. But then he kind of pieced together a lot of what she said, interrogation, gunshot. It's like, you gave it to the military, didn't you? And he got super pissed, which she tried to be like, it's not what you think, which it's not, because the whole relationship they have with Monica with this whole thing, it's like, obviously it's like, no, like they made sure that the military doesn't continue doing what they did with it. Obviously Monica helped. Like whether Alexis and Paul and Mara know about that, I don't know. Charlie does, but I don't know if Charlie went off to tell, because it might just be like, no, we stopped them, we prevented them from going even further with this as an interrogation tool. At least for now we stopped it, but we would continue to stop them anyway, because this is how we want Reverie to run. I don't know if they know, the others know that Monica had a hand in this. I doubt it, because Monica probably isn't one about trying to take all the glory from this situation. I mean, obviously it benefited herself, but also because that's what she believed. She didn't believe in using Reverie like that, but nevertheless, she's like, it's not like that. We made sure it wasn't used like, but he wasn't really trying to listen to her. And he's yelling and getting a little volatile. And she's just like, for one, it's my company. I run it however the hell I want to. You don't really get any say in it. And so she leaves. And you could tell he was getting a little unstable, just kind of like, okay, that's not good. Now, later on, we see him working that security guard again, which is like, I get it, you're getting paid, but still, like, maybe he doesn't know about, like Charlie and Alexis's like history with Oliver, that he's willing to do this. I mean, once again, it's just like, I got my own issues, but still kind of like, man, he's up to some very duplicitous shit, because we see him pull out a Reverie, activate it, and then pass out. So I assume this has something to do with like, because by making it such a public thing, this way he gets inside of the building, because they have to bring him there if they want to get him out of the Reverie. Also, because the Reverie thing has never been a public thing, like the whole like misfortune and how things run, like the problems of getting people out has never been a public thing. Now it's been a super public thing. Like this is the first time it's happened in a very public area. Usually it's like a few people here and there might know, but it never widespreads. Like beyond that, it doesn't become like a very like news thing. And now because of him doing this, it will. We don't know what it is that he has the security guard doing. It has to be him like, he must go to like make it so that news people find out about it. He's going to make it more of a spectacle, because this is going to cause problems and it's going to make things hard for Alexis. And then he's going to swoop in and be like, oh, hey, come let me get the company back. I'll fix things. Which is like, it's so interesting, because he wants to take the company back and he has to be such a dick about it, because he's the one that kind of got outed. But as we can see, he's a very unstable individual, because he's just getting like, because in his mindset, this is how things are, and he's not in the know and understanding what's going on. Like he has his mindset about like how things are, but he's very rigid himself. So, and as we know, he's not the most sane person, especially when it comes to Alexis and stuff. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm curious to see what he's up to. That seems like that's the main thing of what he's doing. Like whatever he has planned is for the purposes of, oh, I'm going to ruin Untitled so that I can swoop in and get the company back, because like, oh, once people find out about this being a thing, like that company's over with, then he can probably swoop in and like save the day and fix everything and kind of get it back. Because maybe in some twisted way he thinks by being the hero of the day, like maybe he can get Alexis back too. Maybe he thinks by getting one he's getting the other two, because if I get back Untitled, I'm also getting Alexis back. She'll have no choice to love me, type of thing, kind of force her hand, type of thing. Seems like it's going to be like that. And then finally, at the end of the episode, we get the twist of like, she's there with Chris and everything. I was like, oh, how'd you get in my apartment? Oh, you never gave me the key back. I was like, oh yeah. It's like, because there's a whole conversation of like, oh, is this good? And it's like, you know, because Mara's up there second guessing everything, like, because it's like, oh, we could so easily fall back into old habits. And it's like, is that good? Like, Chris is all about it. She's all about it. She's like, I don't know what's going to, like, is it a good thing or not? And then but now she's like, oh, I'm happy. She's like, I'm good. It's happy. It's okay. I was wondering, like, is it okay? Is that going to cause some problems later on? It does, but not in the way I thought it would. And she gets a call from Chris, and he's like, what? So you're calling me? He's like, no, I'm not calling him. Like, I was like, what the fuck are you? I was like, is this some like weird Oliver's message? Like, what are you doing? And she answers her phone. He's like, hello, and it's Chris. I'm like, oh, it's not. I was like, it's not real. None of this was real. Like, legitimately, the last time she probably saw Chris was 2 episodes ago, when he was like, he'll give her space. That, because he even says it, that was 3 days ago. That means everything she's been experiencing has been not real. I mean, to be fair, all that stuff did, like, oh, Chris calling her, like, no one else is, like, it's only been her and Chris, so no one else has been around to confirm that he was there. And it's like, oh god. And then we see Chris turn into Ray and then disappears, so the derealization has kicked back in. So once again, we don't know, maybe not, I don't know, like I said, that still could be something that, you know, a problem that Oliver is causing. Like I said, I still want to think that maybe on some level that bruised bullet thing might have been him and this causing problems to besmirch it even more. But it might just be like all the times Mara has been going into Reverie, it's kind of finally messing with her head even more. To be fair, it could be that Reverie is trying to tell her something, because even Ray's like, I'm here for a reason. So maybe if Mara can figure that out, maybe this whole derealization thing could stop. But it's like, holy shit. For one, it's like sad because it's like, oh, she thought she was taking steps forward with Chris, but it's like none of that happened. That was all fake and in her head. I always kind of like twists like that in episodes where it's like, oh, you think, because it's come up in some other things. I think, like, I'm pretty sure, yeah, iZombie had an episode like this, and I think it's such an interesting twist because it especially plays well in this, because it's like, oh, that realization, derealization situation for her has happened, like, you know, twice before now. It's gotten really bad, but now it's like, okay, now things are getting worse, because she was on the medicine. I don't know if it's like, well, she probably stopped taking it when it was like, okay, it's no longer an issue, but now it's kind of popping back up. So 2.0 isn't as great as we thought it was. But let's not forget, Alexis is fiddling with some stuff on Oliver's suggestions. Like I said, that's supposed to be, he could still be behind this, fiddling with it. I don't know. I'm so interested to see what goes on in the next episode with the continuation of all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.